think this is the 10th in a series that we've had over the past school year, and we're really excited that this has been a great and effective way to have our scholars, alumni, emerging leaders, and economic club members join together in this virtual space as we encounter this virtual world. And so it's a great opportunity to learn about different career paths, to connect and get some great advice, especially for our scholars who are exploring different career paths, wanting to build some great success in their early careers and just make great connections for their network. And so we're grateful to see each and every one of you. We know we have a few more joining, but wanted to get started and open up the room, as well as kick off our panel. Today's discussion will be careers in technology, and we have a great and esteemed panel, as well as others who have joined who have experience in the field. So we look forward to learning and hearing from all of you, but especially our panel. We have Danielle Bryan, who will be the alumni moderator. I will introduce her in a second, but the event will start off with a panel discussion that she will moderate. She'll have Dr. Ximena Hartsock on the panel, as well as Lopez, who will be joining us shortly from Tone to Action. These are great leaders that we look forward to hearing from. And each of you as well, you'll have an opportunity to share and network. We'll have, after the panel, of course, opening it up for Q&A in the whole room for some discussion there. But all of our Mentor Mondays, we try to have opportunities for one-on-one or small group discussions. And so we'll have some breakout rooms for about 20 minutes or so where you guys can talk in smaller groups, get to know each other, share what you've learned in the panel, just do some networking as well as some discussion questions. And so we look forward to that happening as well. All right, so just to get us kicked off and started, again, like I mentioned, Will join us shortly, but I want to make sure we're making good use of everyone's time. So I'll introduce our alumni moderator. Her name is Danielle Bryan, and she is actually the vice chair of our Alumni Leadership Council and a current mentor. She is a scholar, a former scholar, who graduated high school from Phelps Ace High School in 2012 in Washington, D.C. While there, she was introduced to STEM and went on to Virginia State University, where she majored in manufacturing engineering. She then graduated from VSU in 2016. And since then, she's worked at Deloitte Consulting, primarily as an SAP supply chain consultant. She works in the supply chain and IT space, and she spent the last 4.5 years getting dynamic experience and exposure to supporting clients and companies, enabling technology to improve business operations and processes. Outside of consulting, Danielle is passionate about helping create programs and initiatives to help students, high school and college, get STEM opportunities. One of her quotes that she's been most inspired by says that everyone wants something in life, but it's about the person who wants it the most. So we're excited to have Danielle, the dynamic leader, lead this discussion, and I'll leave it to her to introduce both Ximena and Will, and then when Will joins, he'll join the conversation. So over to you, Danielle. Thank you.
All right. Thanks, Marissa, for the introduction. Hello, everyone. Happy Monday. I am honored to be a part of this Mentor Monday as a moderator. And I will kick it off. Fun fact, I used to intern at Phone to Action with Ximena back in 2016. So it's been a pleasure and I am excited. So we'll get right into it. Ximena is the founder of TechApprenticeships, LLC, and co-founder of Phone to Action. Prior to co-founding Phone to Action, she managed memberships and outreach for a national advocacy organization, where she ran hundreds of campaigns across the US. She has also held numerous leadership positions in the Washington, D.C. area, including spending time as a principal, assistant superintendent, and agency director. She is a member of the board of directors of Washington Economic Club, the board of industry leaders of Consumer Technology Association, and DC Vote. She has a doctorate in policy studies from George Washington University, and she was born and raised in Santiago, Chile. She is passionate about education and about empowering people to take action to make this world a better place. So let's all welcome Ximena. We're glad to have you here to talk about just tech industry. Our next leader within this session is Will Lopez, He hasn't joined yet. He will be soon, but we'll kick off with his bio as well. He is an economic club emerging leader. So Will is an experienced customer success leader. For the past 10 years, he has managed and developed highly effective teams while optimizing and scaling the customer experience across multiple organizations. His focus on delivering the customer's goals and outcomes has resulted in creating relationships with executives from organizations such as American Heart Association and the US Chamber of Commerce, to Fortune 500 companies such as Walmart and JP Morgan. So let's all welcome Will Lopez as well. All right. So with that being said, we'll start off with just some questions for you, Ximena, while we wait on Will, if that is okay with you.
Yeah, no, happy to start, yeah.
Okay. So the first question we have for you is, as someone who has founded tech startups and hired and built teams, what are the characteristics you are looking for in people seeking jobs in technology?
Well, that's a great question to start, because you are one of the examples I'm going to use, Danielle. So working, startups are, you got to think of it as a very different type of entity than any other type of business. So sometimes people think startups are, a small business, and other people sometimes think startups come and go and they die off or something. Well, startups actually are a very important function of America and pretty much every country in the world right now, because startups get kick off innovation, and then startups that succeed are able to build into big companies. And so, for example, Facebook was a startup, Google was a startup, Zoom was a startup. Pretty much everything that you use today that is a new technology, a technology of the last decade, is a startup. And it's called startup because it moves really fast, accelerates really quickly. It has metrics that put extreme pressure on that, on the organization to grow, meaning if they sell a lot, to compete, to build, the best possible technology, etc. And startups, 9 out of 10 startups die. So imagine that you have all of these pressures and then a track record that is really hard, right? Like it's really hard to do one. So the people that work in a startup need to have different types of skills that, working somewhere else. Now, you can work anywhere else and have those startup skills, and those skills are going to make you successful in the other places where you are. For example, a lot of people in the economic club have the same startup skills you see in a successful startup. Why? Because really, the skills that are needed are skills that are actually good for working in the 21st century. One, being really good changing with the day. You can't plan. The pandemic, made a lot of people think, oh, well, all those plans that I had for a year out of the window. Well, startups see that every day, because you have a short number of people that work there, lots of pressures, a short timeline, lots of competitors, and this goal to really accelerate really quickly. So whoever is hired in a startup can be someone that comes to work and thinks, well, I'm going to be guided to do my job. I'm going to have time to do it on my own pace. No, it has to be somebody very flexible that is able to change plans if things happen. And the second thing, Danielle was really good at this, is to do it all with a really good attitude, because culture in a startup is key for success. And so if somebody is upset about something, then the other person can get upset too, and then another one, and then the culture can quickly, just because everything accelerates so fast in a startup, the culture can also sink really quickly. And so it's really important to have a good mix of people from different backgrounds that can talk to each other really openly and honestly, And so startups normally look for personalities that are kind of very genuine. So if you go and apply to an internship at a startup, which I suggest you do, you actually should intern in a startup and also in a very traditional organization. So you see the change, and that will help you whichever way you go later. And so they look for that. The third thing I will say, you're flexible, you're quick with, you're optimistic, positive. Like I said, the third thing is really important to do is to learn quickly. So you don't have time to go back to school to learn. A lot of people actually at Phone to Action didn't even have a degree. Some people dropped out. Not a good example, but it happened. And today there are a lot of jobs you can actually learn really quickly. But even if you have a degree, your degree is not going to teach you everything that you need to know when you work. Like at Deloitte, I'm sure Danielle uses a lot of other skills that she picked up since she was little, in her house with her friends. Like a lot of the skills that you use in the day-to-day, you will use in a startup. 4, and I will end with that. I see Will join, so we can hear from him too. And number 4, and I think this is, for me, is very important that people know when they go to a startup that you have to be okay with the vision of the product, especially if it's a tech startup, because they will require you to have mind and soul involved in the work that you do. And so you have to want to be there. You have to have some kind of alignment between your values and that startup. Like if you love the environment, you are now going to be able to work in a startup like Jewel, because they do things that are a little bit different from those values. If you love animals, you may now want to be working in a startup that does animal trials. So those things, you don't think about them. Nobody teaches you that in college. But then when the day-to-day work comes to, you need to have a job that you love, because you will spend a lot of hours there and your life will be so much better and happier and more balanced and all the good stuff if you love what you do. So those 4 skills, kind of skills, some of them are not, there are plenty of others, but to me, those are important, not just for the employer, but also for you.
Awesome. Thank you, Ximena. I definitely relate to that as well, with, people that are in tech industries and people that you look for. And what I heard from you is you want people that are flexible, have a good attitude, and are honestly, long life learners. So those are just some key things I kind of heard from what you just said as well. But hello, Will, welcome. We did a quick bio for you.
Thank you.
So we know you're an emerging leader. You work at Phone to Action. So we'll start off with just a quick question for you. So what advice do you have for scholars interested in learning more about tech industry? Any books or online resources that you can suggest?
So I think it's important. Let me give you all a little bit of my background on how I came into tech, and it actually has a lot to do with Ximena during that time period. And so I was at a nonprofit organization, and we did a lot of policy making and work in the community within DC regarding scholarships for students to go to private schools. And I remember the bursting tech scene that was happening. This was way back when, 7 years ago, 6 years ago. And I had an opportunity to meet Ximena because we were using Phone to Action. We were actually the 5th client to ever use Phone to Action. And so I remember seeing a lot of people work at WeWork. They had coffee, they were getting happy hours. It was just like a fun scene to be a part of. But I also saw how hard they work. And I was like, I need to go into that space. And I remember telling myself and saying, okay, I want to ask Ximena, or I want to ask Jeb, her co-founder, if I can work with them, but I don't have any skills that can relate to that. And so one thing I ended up doing is actually taking a class at General Assembly, learning digital marketing, right? Because I thought that was something that I can go into. I'm not a coder. That's not something that I'm interested in, but I was interested in studying more of like, how do I help an organization grow? What are some digital marketing tactics that I can do? And so I first took that class, and if you have an opportunity with your employer to pay for it, then do it. If not, then you might have to spend a little bit, but most of you are still in college. And so take some classes in college that relate to computer science or go into the tech field. Once I finished that class, I remember reaching out to Ximena and I said, Ximena, do you mind if I take you out for coffee and we can talk? And I told her what I really wanted to do. And I said, I can come in super early. I can work really, really late. Like, I know y'all are in there in the office doing stuff. And so I want to work with you. And Ximena was like, I'll do one better. If you can come on Tuesdays and Thursdays, come to our office and work with us from there. And I was like, yes, I'll do it. And I jumped on it. And I didn't realize that then, but that sort of helped me understand the tech scene as a whole. And so for folks who want to get into it or learn more about the tech environment, you don't always have to be an engineer or a computer science person to go into the tech space. There's so many other roles that are tech adjacent that you can really learn from and deploy your skills in. I'm very extroverted. I love talking to people. I love making those connections. And I found my place within customer success. And so Ximena then, offered me a job at Phone to Action. And 5 years later, I now run a team of about 30 people on the customer success department when we just started with 3 people. But it goes to show that, if you're willing to learn and you have a little bit more of that humility to learn and actually try things out and whatnot is really important. Also understanding, I don't know if this was shared already, but feedback is really important. And so feedback is good or bad. It depends on how you take it. But feedback in the early stages of any tech startup is super important. And so I had a really great relationship with Ximena where she would give me some real feedback like, hey, this isn't working. This is working. This is how we should deploy it. This is how you should go about doing this. And at first I was like, I have 6 years of experience. I'm not out of college. I know how to do this, But then I took a step back and I said to myself, well, if I want to be in this space for quite some time, I have to learn how to, the feedback that she's provided me or anyone has provided me so I can do better. And so people only give you feedback if they want you to get better. And so keep that in mind while you're developing your skills and working on your skills as well. And so 2 things I would say is take some classes now on computer science or anything adjacent to computer science so you can understand what that world is about. I'm going to piggyback on what Ximena said, do an internship at a tech startup and somewhere that's more established so you understand what you want as well, because tech startups aren't for everyone, or a technology company may not be for everyone. There's different stages of a technology company. And then 3, accept feedback. That's something that's going to help you in the long run, not just in the tech space. I think that's really important.
I agree 100%. Now I remember those days when Will started, and I remember, it's sad because we work because of the pandemic closed. So now that space is not even open. But that, tells you a lot about how unpredictable things can be. And so that's why it's important to be nimble and to be able to kind of be flexible with different environments. So everyone, listening today, the scholars listening, if you can, apply to different types of internships, do it, because it's going to pay off later on. I bet you that Danielle, a lot of the anxiety that she could have felt at Deloitte didn't feel as much because she had felt that anxiety with less risk before. So it's better to do internships, several of them, before you start working.
Definitely agree. And so, what I got from Ximena and Will again is, when looking for people to hire and people to be on your team, you're looking for people you're going to be proactive and going to have a positive attitude and be flexible. So I think that's, something I've seen as well, working in the tech industry is, everything's always evolving and you have to evolve with it and have that attitude to do so. So this is a question for both of you guys to answer, but we want to understand and figure out, what inspired you to enter in this current field. Will, you kind of explained a little bit about that. Were you always interested in technology? So it's probably begun a little bit more at Ximena.
Me, not at all, not at all. I had if you would ask me 20 years ago what I would be doing today, it would not even remotely think about it. You know, I was in a completely different career path. And I kind of stumbled into technology because the organization that I worked at had a need. And I saw the need, just like many other people see needs, you know, like, you know, many of you, you know, you have parents sometimes or friends, and they have a problem, and you think, you know, that problem could be solved by this. I mean, some things are really little that when we are kind of, you know, curious or we are contemplating something, you know, occur to us that should have a solution. That was exactly the moment that I had. It wasn't anything different than that. I didn't go to Stanford. I wasn't born in a you know, a family, in a rich family. I didn't have friends that were in technology. None of that. I didn't go to meetups. I didn't even know what a meetup existed. It was only because I had this idea, and I thought, you know, it should be an app for that. Why don't we have an app for that? This is 2012. And it was no app for that. So I said, well, let's build the app. But at times, you know, when you don't know a lot about something, you actually take more risks because you don't know. Like, for example, if you know, a friend of yours, like for the people that like cooking, or even if you don't like cooking, a friend of yours is getting married, they can't buy cake because the bakeries are closed, and you're like, I'm gonna make a wedding cake because you never made one. You feel like, it's gotta be really easy, and then you realize how difficult it is. So there are a lot of things that you actually do better sometimes because you're ignorant of how difficult it could be. That was my case. If I knew today how hard it is for most tech companies to succeed, I would probably never done it. I would have been scared of, you know, wasting my time. A lot of people told me, you know, don't quit your job as it is. And some, you know, I'm the personality that I tend to want to have a solution for something that intrigues me. So I tend to be a little bit, I don't think obsessive is the right word, because I'm very curious about a lot of things, so I do change, but I do tend to finish something that I get started. So so you know, that's what happened to me in technology. And what I found, Danielle, is that you do not need to know anything about technology to have you know, good experience working in technology, not even using a device, nothing. The only thing you have to have is actually desire and not being afraid, intimidated, and see technology as a vehicle. And people sometimes see technology as this thing that is there that somebody else does, but we forget that we are right now using technology to talk. Every single person that got into this Zoom call is a technologist already, because you were able to not get with the frozen screen, you're able to listen, you probably, some of you multitasking because somebody, you know, shot you on the phone and you answered the other phone. In this moment, you may be engaged with 2 or 3 devices easily, you know, and without shame, because you're able to, because we have evolved from just being, you know, users of technology to actually being more of technologists. So the transition is pretty easy these days.
I went to school for politics and economics. And so I, you know, I love computers, and I built a computer when I was a little kid with my brother, but outside of that, I was not looking to go into tech and become an engineer. I just, it wasn't meshing with me. They had this image of an engineer that was very introverted, and I'm over here wanting to talk to a lot of people, shake hands, go out there and meet folks and actually have that. So for me, what it really, you know what really drove me? I had a really nice job before coming on to like Phone Action. I made really good money. No one was asking me to work hard. And there's one thing, and I don't share this with a lot of folks, but I'm sharing it with you all. because I feel like it's important. I remember I used to walk to my bus stop, and I used to walk to my bus stop at 4:30 in the afternoon. So I used to get out of my job at 4:30 in the afternoon. And I was so bummed out because I was like, I want to have a job where I'm checking my phone constantly. I need to work late. I want a team that I want to work late with. Like I need that somewhere. And I happened to meet Ximena and her team and everything. And I remember thinking that and being like, I want to go somewhere. Tech is the space that I feel like people are doing that in. Plus, I also saw that like some of my friends were in technology companies and they were getting pizza when they work late. And I like that idea. So I was like, you know what, I want that too. And so I joined the technology company, Phone Action, because I wanted to do that. And I think, Ximena, I don't know if you remember, but we used to work late. We used to come in early.
Yeah.
We used to have conversations and push the envelope on certain things. And you know, I think that's what really drove me to kind of go into this field. And now that I'm in the field, I have a career trajectory that's like, you know, well ahead of me. And so I was able to meet a lot of folks. I've built out a team. I understand what technology is, what the process is for that. And music, yeah, you're right, Ximena, completely. Music was like a fun part for that too. But I think if I go back to like that moment, right, which is I could live this life and be comfortable and be okay with it, or do I push myself to try something new and really want to do that? And so I'm not saying right out of college, you got to work, you got to figure something out, and you're going to have to take an opportunity that you may not always be okay with. But the best advice I got was from my father, who said, you make your world, you're the owner of your domain. And so he used to say that to me in Spanish. He says, you're the owner of your domain, no matter where you're located. And so whether that's a job, a relationship, a home, you own a certain part of it. So own that domain and make it the best that you can, right? So if you're in a job and you want to go into tech, own that domain, and then go into another position within that. You have opportunities that are adjacent to tech that can be a part of that as well. So, yeah.
All right. So talking a little bit about, you know, what inspired you all being in technology. One question for you, Ximena, again, and Will, feel free to jump in, is what inspired you to start Phone to Action? You talked about, you know, there being one little problem you saw. Can you provide a little bit more context quickly of what Phone to Action is, maybe in case anyone on the call here is not aware of, you know, your tech startup in regards to?
I'm going to tell you about both, because I am actually building a new technology company now. And so Phone to Action, you know, is because I used to work in an organization and I did advocacy. I was a head of digital grassroots. So I would, you know, organize people across the country to talk to their lawmakers. And I thought, there's gotta be some technology to connect people with lawmakers, and it didn't exist. So I wanted to build it for my job. It wasn't even for me to have a company. And then, you know, as soon as we built it, we recognized right away that that was a business opportunity, because we start selling the technology before we even ask people to buy. So, you know right away when something has legs. And this company I am building now is actually a recruiting tool for people to enter apprenticeship programs. So in the US and really everywhere in the world, we have a really big problem, especially with women, is that we start a path in our career and it's really hard to change that path, because technology is not an obstacle. It's actually the perception that the person can't do a job without, you know, a degree in technology is the obstacle. And so we are fighting against the destiny that every person has, not only at birth, but also by choosing a major in a school. So if you were like in politics and me in education, our lives with Will are not the norm, are the exception. And most people in the world really are kind of set, you know, to do the same thing for life. And the worst part of this is like women, if a woman makes a mistake, you know, we see this over and over at age, a young age, or whenever, made a mistake, got a DUI, sold drugs because, it was a situation at the time that she was involved in. Those people, those women can almost never get a good job because they have that prison time or felony or misdemeanor in their, especially if they're people of color, they have it in their resumes for life, and never leaves them. But a technology job can save a woman from all of that, can change a path, can take an almost dropout out of that dropout sentence that is, what that is, poverty and nothing else. Because you can learn an apprenticeship in a much short period of time, and then triple, quadruple the minimum wage in 1 year. So I am building a tool to do recruitment for apprenticeships, because even for internship and apprenticeships, normally it's people who are very engaged, the ones that are getting, with apprenticeships and internships, people that are already connected, people that know that they have organizations that support them. But there is a ton of people out there that are really alone, and that most of the time are ignored and they fall under their radar. So these technologies to find them, to recruit them, to enroll them in tech apprenticeships. So both technologies, both companies solve a problem. Both are civic problems, are societal problems. So they're both, to say, kind of made me feel good in a way, because I am building something that solves this problem. But there are so many other problems that may not feel as social as this, but they're also very important. From vaccines, in science, so finding ways to treat soil when soil is losing the water, that many parts of the world are having that problem right now, or clean environments, etc. There's so many needs that only are going to be solved through innovation. So my two little companies, they do a little something in that little space. Our entire lives are full of examples of innovations that are needed for for us to have a better planet and a better future.
Awesome. Thank you, Ximena. Again, I think, some important things you said again was you saw some problems, some humanitarian civic problems, and how technology would help solve that as well. So I think that's important. You building your career from, being in advocacy and going into technology and building something that combines all of that. I think it's awesome. So we're coming up at 5:35. We'll get one more question from you, Will, and then I'll transfer this back to Marissa for breakout sessions. Does that work? All right.
Yeah. All right. Hey, Danielle,
Okay.
you can actually open it up for questions from the audience. I saw a couple people with their hands up, so
Yep.
you have Q&A with the whole room. That'd be great.
Yeah, so feel free. Do we have anyone that has any questions? Just feel free to unmute yourself, introduce yourself, and ask your question.
Good evening. Hi guys, Garal. Ximena, this is mainly addressed to you, I suppose, but anyone's welcome to jump in. Starting social, I assume that these are social enterprises since they're solving problems. What was the hardest part in the very beginning? Sure, you have an idea. What else?
It's harder to build companies that solve social problems and they're perceived as such. Like if you go to a venture capitalist and you tell them you're going to build the next Slack or the next Zoom, they're like, sure, I'm here. Everybody supports you. If you say, I want to save the world, they look at you like, you're not going to make money doing that. So that's kind of like the issue with technologies that are social impact technologies. So the goal, though, is always, you always want to look for traction, that people buy, use whatever you build, because if you don't have traction, you're not going to have investments. And if you have a startup, you do need a venture capital. There's no way out. You can't sell. It's very, very, I don't really know any startups that did it along without capital. But the social, the doing something good for the world, you can still make a profit. So the old paradigm that you have to be a non-governmental organization or nonprofit to do something good for the world, that's old. Today, in fact, every company tries to do something for the world. You can have a social impact company, see a corporation, and like mine, and do something like that. You just have to focus on the same model. It's exactly the same thing, doesn't change. You can build chocolates, you can clean the air. The processes to build the processes and supply chain, Danielle can probably tell you, you can actually translate a lot of these things. But the important thing is you have to do something you really believe in, because if you don't believe in it, you're not gonna know what you're doing. You can't just have a social impact startup about something that looks good, sounds good, but really doesn't have legs. It's not gonna be successful.
And why would you need venture capitalists if you do have traction?
Because startups are all about acceleration. So you can have a small business, your father had a bakery, a really successful bakery, passed it to you, you pass it to your kids, you make 2 million a year, you have a good maybe 3 million, as the cost of life goes up every 5 years, you increase a little bit, you have a good life, maybe you have a great life, but it's flat. Maybe the increase in growth is really, 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 it's not exponential, it's not steep. Startups go like this. If you don't have a startup going like this, it's gonna die, because startups are about acceleration. Why? Because when you have, if you ask me why you take venture capital. If you take venture capital, because normally, imagine it's you came up with an idea, you want to do it, your idea is great. I say, okay, I'm going to, Marisa, Mary, Brady, everybody, everybody say, okay, we're all going to pitch in and give you some money. We believe in you. Nobody's going to give you that money without conditions. They're going to say, and the money actually is a grant, like you can lose it and nobody's going to come after you. But it's almost like a pride thing that every startup founder wants to do these metrics, because they want to be in the group that made it, because almost nobody make it. So you kill yourself almost to make it, and you have to return that money in multiplication, in multipliers. So they give you 10 today, they expect a return of 5 or 6. Why? Because most of the money that venture capitalists give out, they don't get it back, because most startups die, so they don't get much back. So when they get something back, they need a lot of return. You need the venture capital as a founder, because to accelerate, to do it all quickly, you have to do it with money. Now, why do you need to do it quickly? Because technology goes away. So what's clever today for you, it may not be clever tomorrow. So if the founder of Slack would have taken 10 years, or the founder of Zoom 10 years, somebody else would come in and eating for lunch. So they gotta do it fast. And to do it fast, you need to hire people quickly, and you need to focus on building quickly. And that's why acceleration goes like that. And that's why you need money. So it's like the chicken and the egg. And when you are successful, you can exit, and then you return the money, and everybody makes it, and you go and build something else. That's the American dream.
One thing I do want to mention is that with Phone Action, for example, a lot of folks, if you think about it 7 years ago or 8 years ago, a lot of folks didn't understand that advocacy was year round, right? And so, I know that a lot of folks think about the venture capital piece and think about the money and the acceleration. but there's also an education piece on this. Like, you know, and Ximena can talk to this as well, which is how many clients did we work with that we educated them on the idea of phone tax and why it was beneficial and all that. So when you are looking at tech companies, when you're looking at maybe building your own tech company, keep that in mind, because you're driving the market as well for that. And so we really not only rode this wave of smartphones, but we also drove the market in understanding and accepting using our products and being okay to use this. And we were just in the right position, right time with, you know, everything that happened last year, everyone going on Zoom and needing digital technology to engage folks. And so a lot of that came together last year as well. So just something really important. And there's a lot of work that goes into that too. Yep.
All right, Caleb, did you want to go?
Yeah, I had a question for anyone really. I think Will talked a bit about the idea of like having some sort of stability right after college and, you know, like securing a job and like going to some already like established company and then having a job. And I guess my question to both of you is, at which point do you know, like, do you like dedicate resources, time, and, you know, everything that you have to whatever your startup idea may be, so that you like don't jump the gun? You know, like what would be like your thought process when making that decision, and when would you be like comfortable with, you know, being like, it's time to like, you know, dedicate time and everything I have to this?
Ximena, if you don't mind, I can take that. Yeah, so like for me, I was like, I need 3 months worth of money saved. Like I grew up poor, so my family grew up very poor. And so like for me, it was very much like I need to have the financial stability to make a decision to do that. And I'm willing to do that in 3 months, right? And so I didn't know if Phone to Action was going to make it. I know Ximena thought it. I believed in Ximena's vision, and I was like, okay, we'll make this happen and we'll work together. But for me, the personal thing was I need 3 months saved, and then I can figure something else out, right? And I was willing to take that. That was still scary for me, right? Because I didn't know if there was going to be financial security along with that. And, you know, I didn't know how to take that, but that was the metric that I used. I think you determine what metric you want to use if you're either jumping from a stable job to a place that's unknown or to a new venture, right? And that's with any case, you got to make sure that you have a threshold. And for me, it was 3 months at that time. That was very much like, I need to have that ready in order for me to jump ship and do that.
So I think you have to feel very aware of what you're comfortable with. Because, you know, when we were doing these internships from To Action, we met lots of people, and we met lots of students from Stanford, for example, who will go to Stanford thinking, I'm going to be a startup founder. They were already in their heads. And so I will interview some of them, and I said, but what do you want to be a founder of? Well, I don't know that about. I don't know that yet. So I thought, you know, it's like being an entrepreneur for the sake of being an entrepreneur. And I know people like that. I have friends that their parents were entrepreneurs, so the kids are like that. And so I don't know if Stanford attracts that, or it's almost like a you know, fashion thing to do. I don't know, but I think that you never want to be like everyone else. You always want to keep your uniqueness, and you have to know in your head and in your heart what you're comfortable with. Are you comfortable being, you know, without knowing that you may not have money to pay rent next month? Are you comfortable knowing that you may not be able to help your parents? Are you comfortable asking your parents for money? Do you have money in the bank? All those things. I was very comfortable when I came to the US to work in any job. So I was like, I want to work. I want the American dream. So I came, I did all those jobs. I was a nanny, I was a bartender, I did it all. And I was very comfortable with that. And so those are the questions at your age, I was asking myself, you know, probably over 14. I want to go somewhere. You know, I was born in the southeast country in the continent. So I was like, I want to go somewhere. I want to go to Europe. I want to travel. I want everything. I was just so excited about living. And you know, I did all of that stuff. And so, but you have to be comfortable. Like Will said, 3 months for him. what is it for you? And then have a conversation with your loved ones, with your parents, your mentors, your friends, whoever that person is that you can bounce ideas with you, and it's going to give you real feedback, and it's going to tell you, you know what, you don't get up very early in the morning, so I don't see you doing this. Oh, you know what, you are really good at this, so you should do this. Like people that are going to have an honest conversation and do it. I suggest that you experiment a lot in college with entrepreneurship, a lot, as much as you can. There's a lot of time to have fun, but you can have fun also playing with startups. Join a startup as an intern, as an apprentice, whichever. Experiment, because it's much easier to enter Facebook, for example, or Google, or some of these big startups that are still kind of called startups. If you enter as an intern and you stay there, it's much easier. Even if you go to the top schools, then having a tech job in some of these big giants is harder. So if you are interested in the venture world, if you want to fund your own startup, get an internship in one of the tech companies. If not the tech giants, like if I could have interned at Facebook, I will intern at Facebook because I want to know how it is from the inside, or Google, or whatever. Amazon is here, and you can go to smaller tech companies too, but experiment from everywhere. So you're gonna get so rich in your head, you're gonna know really quickly. That's gonna come to you.
It's perfect. Thank you so much.
Do we have any other questions for anyone? Right. Looking at time, we are at 5:49. So we're gonna do breakout sessions for about 15 minutes, I believe, just checking.
Yeah, just about 15, 20 minutes. We have until 6:15, and we are really glad to see everyone who's joined, and we want to encourage you guys to make some more connections. We're going to go into 2 breakout rooms, so I think it'll be about 4 to 5 people in each of those rooms. But please make sure that take time to introduce yourselves in those rooms, and we'll put a couple of questions so you can discuss in the chat. But we'd love for you to think about what it is that you learned from this panel, and both Ximena and Will dropped some great gems of wisdom that I hope you guys are able to absorb. And so just to be able to reflect on that helps you to settle it in your spirit even more. And so take that time to talk about what you learned, and anything that you would like to take forward with you in your career search, or especially for our scholars and alum, what it applies to you in your career that you learned from this panel. Love for you to share that in your small groups after you take some time to introduce yourselves, but we'll get you guys broken up in just a second. Any questions before we do that? All right, Kyle, I think we're ready. Back, y'all. Oh, everybody left. I think instead of coming back, a lot of people left, but thank you again, everyone. Did you guys have a good conversation in your breakout rooms?
Good, yes, it was great.
Awesome, awesome.
Oh, I think everyone's ready now.
There they are. Awesome. Welcome back, everyone. Good to see you all. Thank you again for participating. Did anybody want to share any insights or fun tidbits from their discussion in their breakout room?
One thing I was finishing to say in the other room is I was suggesting for them to join Clubhouse. And even if they don't like to talk, don't worry about it, because Clubhouse for me is more about listening than talking. And yeah, I mean, some conversations are, I don't like them, but you can get out of the conversation really easily, and you don't have to register, you don't have to sign up, you don't have to brush your hair because it's no video, it's just audio. And if you're doing something else, just like you listen to music, you can listen to a conversation, and inspires thinking. So I sign up to a bunch of, about tech startups and startup founders. And I also sign up to soccer because I like soccer. And I was watching the other day a debate about the Arsenal, a game that happened. And that was so much fun, because then I went and watched Arsenal because they were talking about it. So you don't have to talk. And if you don't like it, you get out, nobody knows. So it's very non-committal. So it's that's a little suggestion there.
Thanks, Ximena. Yeah, Clubhouse is a new and interesting app. I have it on my phone and I don't use it that much, but you never know what fun conversations you can plug into. Here we are at 6:15. I know we promised to end at this time, but just wanted to thank our panel again. Thank you, Danielle, for being a great moderator. Thank you again to Ximena and Will for your awesome insights and wisdom. Thank you to Pam for being a diligent and dedicated member, always showing up and to give great advice as well. And to all of our alum and scholars, we just thank you for continuing to participate in our programming. We're going to restart the Mentor Mondays this fall, so please look out for that information. We also will have some fun programming for this summer, so please continue to check your emails, check your text messages. We'll be pinging you, so we're not going anywhere as far as other opportunities to engage and connect with each other. So we appreciate it again and hope you guys enjoy the rest of your evening.
Good night.
Yeah.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks for having us.
Stay well.
Too.